Hello, viewer out there. Welcome to this special session of interviews from the Reunion of Episcopal Conferences of West Africa, Recowa, which is holding here in Abuja. And right here with me on set, we're having the Education Secretary of this from the Catholic Secretariat of Nigeria, Very Reverend Father Augustine Okochi, is here to talk to us about the state of education, especially within the Catholic community in the country today. My name is Charles Agedo. As usual, we're going to be having this special session, like I said, with Reverend Father Augustine Okochi. Father, you're welcome to this special session of this interview section at this Reunion Episcopal Conferences of West Africa, which is happening here in Abuja, in the Federal Capital Territory of Nigeria.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Father. Yes, Father, we'd like to look at the educational system and as it used to be. Is that the case we have today? We always know that the Catholic education used to be the best of education that one can yearn for. But is that the case today?
Yes, I would say an emphatic yes to that question, because Catholic education is still of a very high quality. It takes care of the mind, it takes care of the body, of the soul. So it still remains the best.
All right, Father. There's outcry for the cost of Catholic education. Do you think that the reaction of the society to Catholic education in terms of cost is unjustifiable or is justifiable?
Let me put it this way. We know about that issue. We are well aware of it. But what we are saying is this: people should remember that when the Catholic Church's involvement in education is a pastoral undertaking, it is the duty of the government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to educate the citizens of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So when the Catholic Church gets involved in education, it is helping the government to do its job. And it's also the duty of the church to educate. The church is both a mother and a teacher. So having said that, when you were, if I got you correctly, when you were asking your question, you mentioned how it used to be in the past compared to what obtains right now, at present. Now, in the past, there used to be what we call grant in aid from the government. In a way, the government used to subsidize education. The church and the government worked, collaborated effectively to fund education, thereby making education accessible to most of our people. At some point in the history of our nation, the government now kind of became greedy. They pushed the church away, took over our schools, and basically, ran down the schools, and hence the clamor for the return of the schools owned by the church, or by the churches or voluntary agencies, however you want to mention it. Having said that, they have returned some of them and they have not returned some of them. Now, sometimes people compare the costs of public schools, meaning government-owned schools, with the cost of private mission schools. But I don't think it is a fair comparison. The comparison, comparing it with the cost of education in other private schools, because we both lack subsidy from the government. And when you do that comparison, you see that Catholic schools are still far cheaper than other private schools. So that is why we have been clamoring. It is part of a Catholic school policy on education that the government should once again get involved in funding education, so that when there was this grant in aid, because the students of Catholic educational institutions are bona fide citizens of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So their parents pay taxes, and therefore their children should have the right to government funding as far as their education is concerned. So having said that, once the government comes in, this issue will be settled once and for all. So we continue to persuade the government to ask the government to beg the government to get involved once again in the funding of education. Let us collaborate as we used to do in the past to bring the cost of education down. Thank you very much.
All right, the level of insecurity in the country today, do you think the church, the Catholic schools have a role to play in stemming the tide of insecurity in the country today and across the West Africa sub-region?
Security is a joint venture. Every single citizen in every facet of life in this country has a role to play in the education, security, in ensuring security. I would have loved to hear from you how this situation is affecting our Catholic schools. And it is very obvious that everybody is affected, including Catholic schools. I mean, anywhere there is insecurity, if there are killings, if there are, disruptions of whatever type, we are all affected.
That's right.
Yes, we are all affected. So it's affecting us.
That, one of our professors from the Veritas University
Yes.
was kidnapped.
Yes, we heard of that. So insecurity is affecting all of us, and all of us have a stake. All of us also have a stake in making sure that this situation, is overcome. So we will try in our own little ways. We are doing it. We are, trying to find methods, ways of guarding our Catholic schools, protecting our students, and all that. So if there is insecurity, we don't want to unnecessarily expose our children to attacks, to situations that are insecure. So we all need security, and security is a joint project. The Catholic Church is involved, where there is persuading the government to address the various causes of insecurity at all levels. While we ourselves as a church, we also get involved in social activity, in philanthropy, in education, in helping the poor, to reduce poverty, because all these things contribute to insecurity. So we are addressing it, and we hope and pray as a church that the situation will soon be overcome so that we can move forward as a country. Thank you.
All right. What is your view about the government taking over the mission schools and changing their names?
I'm the Education Secretary of the Catholic Secretariat of Nigeria. So, speaking in that capacity, I think the situation, the answer is very obvious. It was a huge mistake. It's a huge mistake. So, they basically helped to run down the schools, and it was ever since they took over the schools, that cultism crept in, all kinds of indiscipline, disrespect, lack of good manners, because basically the average public school in Nigeria, many of them are good, but many of them, the way they were run, we are clamoring for. Run them down, the schools down, and we don't like it. So that is why we thank those who have returned the schools to the church, and we also are persuading those who have not yet done so, or those who are still hesitant to take this to the other schools that have been returned and see the quality, and judge for themselves whether the quality of education has gone up or down, and then make informed decisions, because the answer is very obvious. Look at Regina Pachi Secondary School in Onitsha Diocese, went out there and won laurels for the country. You see, and many schools have done the same. So when you give the schools back to the church, you will see the difference is clear. We run the schools better, and we are very proud to say that.
2023 election is fast approaching. We're trying to look at the level of youth participation. We have the Sion, we have all kinds of association within the church. Okay, now we want to know if we can, how much we can get our youth involved in politics. And what do you think? Do you think political studies should be introduced to the Catholic schools across the Federation, of course, across the Federal, this West African sub-region, in order to stimulate youth involvement in politics?
Once again, the answer is obvious. Yes, I think we should sensitize our youth on the importance of participation in politics. And right now, the church has an organ, the JDPC, Justice, Development and Peace Commission, the JDPC. And they are very much involved, that organ of the church, in mass mobilization. In fact, recently, they just concluded this thing on voter registration, a campaign on voter registration. So this church is highly organized, even up to the parish level. So we encourage our youth to come out, to get registered, and get their PVCs, and to look around them, see what is going on around them, and look at the quality of the candidates, and think about their future, and help to elect people who really love this country, who really love them, people who have the interests of the youth at heart. So the church is very much involved in sensitization of the youth, in conscientization of the youth, and everybody for that matter, not just the youth, everybody, but particularly the youth. The church is very much involved in trying to persuade them to really take interest in politics and do something to secure their own future by electing qualified people who love their countries and people who love them, people who have their interests at heart and love the whole country. So we're involved.
All right, for that, lastly, the trend is tilted towards the media, the new revolution. The new media, the traditional media is beginning to get eroded with time, with the issue of power supply and all of that. Nobody pays attention to traditional media anymore. Watching televisions, we have media in our beck and call through our gadgets, our phones, and all of that. We have the new media. With the advent of the new media, how do you think the church can leverage on this? And how do you think the church can grow her own media, support her own media in order to capture this section of the youths? Because majority of them are always on the go, on the social media and all of that. And even the print media is gradually being eroded. So now that we have the church being involved in media, how can we help the church to support in building her own media and making it become the first choice of source of information to the youth and to the larger public within the church?
Thank you very much. The church is already doing that. As a matter of fact, in this Catholic of Nigeria, we already have a communications directorate, and they are doing a very fantastic job. Because like you said, if you want to meet the youth, you go to the social media right now. This is the age of instant gratification. And this is the digital age. It's affecting education. Because right now, even the reading culture is being affected. So if you want anything to be read, you push it to those platforms, those different platforms. So we're very much aware of it. You know, there's this saying in Latin that the times change and we change with them. So the church is always adapting to the situation you just described. We are adapting, and in every aspect in education, for example, if you go to Catholic schools, we are very much aware of this fact, so we are pushing people in that direction. Even education itself, even with the situation of COVID, you see now that we have what we call a blended learning, combining, for example, online learning with the traditional classroom learning and all that. So everything now we are moving online, and we are moving with the times. We are not behind. So we are educating people in our Catholic schools. We are pushing our information. We actually have different websites by different parishes and different church organizations. Even a Catholic network, we have it now. You know, we go to one stop. Once you go there, you get all the information you need about the Catholic Church in Nigeria, and so on and so forth. Then we have channels on YouTube, different channels by different organizations. We are there on Instagram. We are there wherever you find the youth. We are there because we know that in this age and time, if you want to talk to the youth, you go where they are, and they are in the social media. They have not completely left the traditional residence, but but we are very much aware of what the situation is, and we are adjusting accordingly.
Can we help to streamline this to possibly the CBCN, to streamline this to a single source of medium where we can have an authentic voice of the Catholic Church. Fine, it's all good that we have fragmented organizations and societies here and there on various platforms. But how can we help build a unified voice that we can all resonate with as a church? To find an authentic voice.
I already mentioned it. We have it here with Father Michael Moore at the head. He's the National Director of Social Communications, and the Catholic Secretariat of Nigeria, and we already have a platform for that. Just one place you go and you find all these things we are talking about. So when the church speaks, it speaks through that medium. So we already have such an arrangement.
All right. But with the upcoming Communications Week, which is happening in May this year, sometimes from 22nd to 29th of May, we'll be having the Communications Week. Is there a stand of the church towards the next general election in terms of sensitization, in terms of mobilization, in terms of direction for the youths, for the men, for the women? We have the Sion, we have the CMO, we have the CWO, we have the laity council and all of that. Is there a strategic plans to harmonize a unified direction as to the direction the church should be thinking in terms of electing our next leader?
Apart from this, it is being organized, communication about is organized from here, from the center. And this is a very highly structured church. We have the diocesan level, we have people at the parish level, all these organizations that you have mentioned, and through the center here, we guide what is happening all over, down to the parish level. And that is one of the reasons why the Communications Week was established. So all these things you spoke about, people are going to be sensitized at all levels, family level, parish level, zonal level, so that they can be aware of what is going on around them, so that they can pick interest in what is going on around them, so that they can understand that it is their future that is at stake, and the welfare of their children and all that. So we are very much into that sensitization that you're talking about. Even apart from the Communications Week, we also have the JDPC, which also has there's this booklet we call Vademecum. This with political sensitization, political education of Catholic faithful at all levels through all these organs, CMO, CWO, Sion, and all that. And then even the youth organization itself, centrally. So we are all collaborating. But as far as this youth and the cost and the activities to be undertaken, they are all centrally organized, and everything will be harmonized. And at the end of the day, everything will be collected and sent back to the center. We see how far we have gone. And at the end of the election, we evaluate the situation. Elections now, we come back, we evaluate, we get feedbacks, and we evaluate and strategize on the ways forward. So we are trying.
Cost of Catholic education, Catholic schools. How can we accommodate the low and the poor with the high cost of fees around our schools, institutions across the country?
I addressed that issue earlier in this interview. Nigeria, our policy, the in Nigeria, we are encouraging the government, because we know that once we get any kind of help from the government, the costs are going to come down. And that is what is sustainable. But we the establishment of endowments, for example, in our universities, the harnessing of the resources of some of our rich people, in terms of getting them interested and involved in Catholic education, awarding of scholarships to the less privileged. We are very much into that. I don't have their permission, but I want to use this medium to give you an example, because when people talk about the cost of Catholic schools, sometimes the information is not out there for people to know exactly what is going on. So we need to disseminate some of this information. When you go to the Jesuit Loyola College, for example, generally people say it's expensive. But what people don't know is that the 30% of admissions is reserved for the poor, those who are brilliant but unable to pay. So for every 100 students you take, 30 of them get paid for by the Jesuits. The source for scholarships for that. So things like that are encouraged in give them free education. Sometimes they use the school fees for them. But remember that if you want quality education, you have to pay for it. Always remember that. So if you want good education, you have to get good teachers. You have to get good equipment. For example, laboratory equipment, you have to maintain the schools, and you have to be able not only to recruit qualified, efficient teachers, you also have to be able to retain them. Because it is one thing to recruit, is another thing to retain. And to retain good teachers, quality teachers, you need to pay them well. Because as soon as somebody notices that this is a good teacher, some other schools, we are in competition with. If a good teacher, if a teacher is very efficient, for example, is very, very popular, you are not the only person who knows. And others would like to poach. So, paying the person better, giving them better conditions of service. So in order to retain those teachers, you need the resources to keep them, to pay them, to make sure that they remain. Because if somebody finds greener pastures elsewhere, automatically the person, so do that, all that takes money. All that takes money. So that's why we keep saying, government, please come and help us. We are helping you to educate our citizens. The students of Catholic and other mission schools are bona fide citizens of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So we need the government to get involved so that it will be possible for us to, be able to reduce the cost of education in Catholic schools.
All right. Finally, the theme of this reunion of Episcopal conferences in West Africa is Fratelli Tutti, part to build brotherhood and sustainable peace in West Africa. Is there a plan to build this into our curriculum?
This is a conference that is. We are now, our bishops, they are our fathers. So they are now discussing this theme. Whatever. So we are waiting for them. We're waiting for their discussions, and we step down. We make our people. They are not here just to talk to themselves and for themselves. Here to talk about our brothers and sisters. So solidarity, fraternity, all these things, where at the end of the day, we are going to make sure that it aspect includes.
All right. In the last half an hour or thereabouts, we've been talking to Very Reverend Father Augustine Okochi, and is of the Education Directorate of the Catholic Secretariat of Nigeria here at CSN. And this is part of our special session of the interview section of the Reunion of Episcopal Conferences of West Africa. And do not go away just yet, because we'll be having more interviews coming your way in subsequent edition of this special interview section from the Episcopal Conference of West Africa. Just stay tuned to the channel. The channel you're watching is the Catholic Television of Nigeria, and my name to remain Charles Agedo. Thank you very much for staying tuned with us.
You are watching CTV.